欢迎我们第三组八信义的同学，请上台。
Hello, dear parents and teachers. We are the HE classes. I'm Joyce.
I'm Jamie.
Before we start our words of presentations, let us ask you one simple question. What is the meaning of justice? Just one mere word, which consists of the meaning of 1,000.
Actually, no one is able to pinpoint the perfect definition of justice, let alone solve its problems. At its core, justice wants to ensure that everyone is treated equally and that individuals are held accountable for their action in a way that is proportionate and appropriate. Though that seems achievable, our planet is nowhere near having justice. In the world, many underprivileged people are striving for lives in the shadows, such as immigrants, LGBTQ, ethnic minorities, and more than we can imagine.
We must make a difference for these people. For all of us deserve to live in a world without oppression, discrimination, or abuse. Now, to learn more about making a difference in social justice, let's welcome Jessica, Haley, and Nita.
Hello everyone, I'm Haley.
I'm Jessica. I'm Nita.
Today, we are going to talk about human rights. First, I would like to talk about the education right. Everyone in this class learns in a good place, right? However, it's not the easy thing to a child laborers and the kids of the battlefield. Also, to the children who live in a poor family. Going to school may be a difficult dream to achieve. Because of the war, the kids of the battlefield can only think about how to stay alive but not go to school to learn. To the children who live in a poor family, going to school will just increase the burden and let life be harder. According to Article 26 in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, everyone has the right to be educated. It's a basic human right. It should be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. But according to the data, worldwide 244 million children and youth are still out of school for social activity. And 2/3 of all 10-year-olds globally are unable to read and understand a simple story. Also, about 1/3 of women are uneducated. Can you imagine that? It means there will be 1 in 3 women who is uneducated. So, what can we do to help them? There are a lot of organizations that are dedicated to child education, and one of them is UNESCO. Their goal is to help the kids around the world and let them have a chance to learn. Although we are just a student now, but we can still help them by donating to the organization and tell the kids' story to others. Everyone should have a chance to learn. It's a basic human right. We should help those kids not only for them, but also for ourselves.
According to Article 24 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, everyone has the right to rest and leisure. Some children are forced into hazardous work that directly endanger their health and development, and many of them even die from overwork. Karoshi is a Japanese term that can be translated into overwork death. People may feel tired, have heart attack or stroke because of the job stress. The low working hour even become a cause of suicidal feelings. However, there isn't a complete labor loss in most countries. In 2018, the Korean government finally passed an act about reducing working hours after the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development said that the Korean workers have extremely long working hours, which is more than 2,000 hours a year on average. To solve the problems of overworking death, each company and factory should establish their own rules. Each worker mustn't work for over 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, so they need to work in shift. In other words, the boss needs to employ more people to finish the work. The cost might increase, but this is the only way to protect the workers' rights. Besides, we need to stop buying products from those companies using child laborers. Even now, some people still use them to reduce the cost. Buying their products make us become the accomplice of child trafficking or exploitations. For example, Tony's Chocolonely is a Dutch company which produces and sells chocolate. Their chocolate bars aren't divided evenly, representing unequal distributions of incomes in the industry. There are a lot of things that we can do. Why not just start from the simple habit that confirming the production process before buying?
Every person who is alive has a right to work, no matter your gender, your race, your age, or even your appearance. Everyone is equal. Maybe everyone thought this is the most simple thing to live. However, this is still an issue in modern society. Some bosses still don't do fair to women. They don't give a work environment as well as men the same pay as men, or even fire them when they get married because they will get pregnant, and this couldn't do anything good for the company. Although the government promotes not to, because of the reason, many women were forced to do the jobs that they don't want to. Not only women, some bosses even depend on appearances to see if they want to employ them or not. The others are having a mental illness or a criminal record before. These are some common reasons companies refuse them to be their employees. Companies think they will only bring them trouble. These lead them to have no work or even be unemployed. According to an investigation, when these people go to auditions, the companies refuse them on the grounds of insufficient strength or lack of ability. After they get a job, during the menstrual leave, the companies make things difficult for them. The others are verbal harassment and physical harassment. These shouldn't be common in our society now. So the government is making difference to these problems. For example, granting parental leave. But the government has to do more to assure everyone can work equally. And next, let's welcome Jim and Simon.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Simon.
And I'm Jim. Today, we're going to talk about gender equality.
Nowadays, gender equality is being seriously discussed around the world. Throughout the history, there are tons of gender inequality. For example, the military battles in World War II. Those women from Taiwan, Korea, or even Germany were forced to be prostitutes. They don't have the right to remain free just because they are biologically female. Women are also being discriminated against in politics. Take Hillary Clinton as an example. During her 2016 presidential campaign, Clinton was often submitted to sexual comments and treatment. Some media focused on her clothing and appearance instead of her policies and qualifications. They are also being unfairly treated in education. In India, women are often taught by less qualified and experienced teachers. Traditional stereotypes in a lot of countries might think that women are expected to prioritize domestic duties, such as doing housework or something similar to that.
What is the cause of these gender inequalities? The main problem might be the cultural ancestors created. In the past, women were considered to be a burden on the family, since they're not strong enough to grow crops, only to do housework and marry some rich guys. In some countries, both customs are serious obstacles for gender equality. For example, the dowry system in India. It is the money and even property given to the boy or his family during marriage, so that he can take proper care of his bride. It was used to honor both sides of the family, but nowadays, dowry is more likely to be a financial investment by a bride's family to get access to powerful connections and business possibilities. As a result, women were reduced to commodities.
Women, like men, are human beings and are entitled to the same basic rights as men. In fact, besides men, women are actually creating milestones that are changing a society too. For example, Rosalind Franklin. She was a chemist and an expert crystallographer. whose work was helpful in the discovery of the structure of DNA. Although she made significant contributions, she was not fully recognized for her work until her death.
Since we're only students from junior high school, our power might not be enough to make a change in the world. But don't forget, around the planet, there are tons of non-governmental organizations fighting for women's rights. We listed 2 famous groups that are promoting gender equality. One of them is UN Women from the United Nations. This organization supports UN member states as it set global goals for achieving gender equality and works with governments and civil society to design laws, policies, programs, and services needed to ensure that standards are effectively useful and truly benefit women and girls worldwide. Next one is the National Organization for Women, NOW for short. Now its purpose is to take action through group activism to promote women's ideas, lead societal change, eliminate discrimination, and achieve and protect the equal rights of all women and girls in all aspects of social, political, and economic life.
Although these organizations are working hard on promoting gender equality, they can't make further influences without the government's help. There is some valuable access to justice. Countries can increase the enforcement of existing laws against sexual harassment efforts. Secondly, they can also let women be educated so that they are able to make informed decisions, not just being controlled by men, and can also increase their economic opportunities in order to let them have gender justice.
Now, let's welcome our next group, Sarah and Amber.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Amber. Today our topic is LGBTQ rights.
On May 17, 2019, Taiwan became the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage. BBC, CNN, and New York Times all published the news. Taiwan passed Asia's first same-sex marriage law on their websites immediately. And Bloomberg even published Taiwan's president wins milestone same-sex marriage vote as the title, Definitely Taiwan. I have been preparing for this day for 33 years. Chi Jiawei, a 60-year-old pioneer of Taiwan's homosexual movement, said. Since he joined the gay movement in 1986, he firmly believed that this day will definitely come. But when he saw that this day really came, he was still very excited. Having said all that, now comes the question. What is LGBTQ?
To figure out what it means to be LGBTQ, we first need to understand the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity. Sexual orientation is a person's sexual preference, preferring boys or girls, and gender identity is when a person sees himself or herself as a boy or a girl. LGBTQ is an abbreviation for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. These terms are used to describe a person's sexual orientation or gender identity.
In a pluralistic society, gender and race are no longer excuses for discrimination, nor are they criteria for distinguishing groups of people. However, LGBTQ sexual preference remains an untouchable issue for many people.
According to the statistics, more than 70 countries in the world still regard homosexuals as criminals. The attitude of the government has also affected the local people, which has intensified discrimination against ethnic minorities and made their situation even more difficult.
So, what can we do to make a difference? Actually, people who oppose homosexuality often don't know anything about them. Think in another way. The difference between LGBTQ and us is limited to different views on sex. Even if those people belong to a very small minority in society, they still deserve to be respected and tolerated. The easiest thing that we can do to avoid the situation is to get to know them. Through understanding, we can empathize with them and create an LGBTQ-friendly space.
Fortunately,
In recent years, with the opening up of society, the tolerance of homosexuality has become more equal and respectful. Also, there are more and more charities fighting for LGBTQ rights, such as Taiwan LGBTQ Hotline Association. They've compiled all the LGBTQ-friendly resources in Taiwan. They also hold many interview sessions and provide more job opportunities for LGBTQ, so that they can gain more people's recognition and respect. Under such a trend, homosexuals who were previously afraid to expose themselves are slowly fighting for their rights to live freely in the sun. It is hoped that by discussing the personal rights and interests of this group, we can enhance everyone's understanding of LGBTQ and create an environment of love, tolerance, and respect. After LGBTQ rights, let's welcome the next group, Racial Justice by Mountain and Sky.
Hi, I'm Sky.
Hi, I'm Mountain.
And today we're going to talk about racial justice. How can we achieve racial justice and create a more equal society where everyone has equal opportunity to succeed, regardless of their race or ethnicity?
Racial injustice has been a persistent issue throughout history, and it continues to affect marginalized communities today. Discrimination based on race, religion, or sexual orientation still exists now. The transatlantic slave trade has begun in the 16th century with millions of Africans kidnapped and sold to work on plantations. This brutal journey and inhumane treatment continue until the 19th century. The impact of the slavery has been felt in many areas such as education, employment, and criminal justice. The death of George Floyd at the hands of the police sparked a global protest and brought attention to the systemic racism and police brutality. While the conviction of the police officer, it was a critical step toward justice for Floyd and his family. Advocates argue that much more needs to be done to address the roots.
We can achieve racial justice by taking collective action through education, awareness, and policy changes. Educational programs can combat stereotypes and biases that contribute to systemic racism. Policy changes can promote equality, diversity, and inclusion in areas such as hiring practices, education, criminal justice, and housing. To achieve racial justice, it's also important to acknowledge and address systemic racism, which is racism embedded in society's institutions, policies, and practices that perpetuate racial inequalities. To dismantle it, we must recognize its existence and work actively towards eradicating it. Another aspect of achieving racial justice is allyship. Allies are individuals who support and advocate for marginalized communities, and their voices are critical in the fight for racial justice. Allies can take many forms, from participating in protests and demonstrations to condemn bigotry and racism in their personal and professional lives. In conclusion, the fight for racial justice is ongoing, and it requires collective action. Achieving racial justice requires education, awareness, policy changes, and allyship. You must work towards creating a world where everyone is treated equally and with respect, regardless of their race, religion, language, or sexual orientation. It is our responsibility to take action and create a just and equitable society for all. And next, let's welcome Brian and Nick.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings. I'm Brian.
And I'm Anthony.
Immigrants, irrespective of their nationality or immigration status, are entitled to certain fundamental human rights.
These rights include the right to life,
liberty, security of a person,
freedom of movement, and protection against intolerance. However, the reality of this cruel world is that immigrants often face discrimination, exploitation, and abuse,
and are sometimes even denied access towards basic services, such as education, healthcare, and legal protection.
They may experience language barriers, lack of legal representation, and face challenges in obtaining documentation or regularization of their status, which can hinder their ability to assert rights and seek justice. You see, immigrant racism is a multifaceted phenomenon that can be influenced by a range of interrelated factors.
It's also a type of discrimination where people have a negative attitude towards others because they come from a different country or culture.
This can happen for various reasons, such as economic insecurity, cultural differences, and discriminatory beliefs perpetuated by societal norms and cultural stereotypes.
Immigrants might face the problem of racism in the payments they receive. For example, migrant workers in the industrial sector last year earned an average regular salary of $58,000 per year, compared with $69,000 for an average American.
Language barriers are another challenge that immigrants face.
When people move to a new country where they are not familiar with the language, it makes communication difficult, which might cause misunderstandings, missed opportunities, and conflicts. For instance, students might get mocked by their classmates because they speak a language that they do not understand, which might lead to bullying and racist acts by childish students. Lastly, physical appearance discrimination is another serious problem that immigrants face. People may make fun of others because of their skin color or demeanor, which can be hurtful and dehumanizing.
Personally, I have seen people with darker complexion get rejected from teacher positions in Taiwanese primary schools just because of their skin color. The root causes of this issue are complex and intricate, but often stem from deep-seated prejudices and discriminatory beliefs.
In conclusion, the issue of immigrant racism is a global problem that affects many countries, including those with a majority white population. Acknowledging and addressing these issues is crucial to create a more including and friendly environment towards all individuals, regardless of their background.
By promoting acceptance and understanding, we can build a more harmonious and equitable society for everyone. Next, we are going to introduce Kate and Emily to talk us about environmental justice.
Hello everyone, I'm Emily.
I'm Caitlin.
Today we're going to talk about environmental justice.
Have you ever heard of the doomsday clock? This clock tells us how much time we have until midnight. In this case, midnight means nuclear armations and global warming causes the end of humanity. Recently, because of the mounting dangers in Ukraine, the clock stands the closest time it has ever been.
Take a look at this picture. Taiwan alone uses 20 billion plastic bags every year, and it needs at least 10 years to break them down in the ocean. If the estimates are correct, in another 35 years, 95% of every seabird alive will have plastic in their stomach. Our first topic for today is underprivileged communities' environmental issues. This scene is called a slum in India. These people don't have enough money to live in a house, so they gather together, leading to overcrowding. This causes many serious problems. First, people in these countries or areas lack the concept of hygiene and disease prevention. Their government is also unable to provide enough doctors and medical resources for them. Second, these places lack water and electricity. After turning on the water tap, they can only get bad water or even nothing. In Africa, most of them can only have electricity about once a week because there isn't enough infrastructure to supply it for such a long time. All these problems can help infectious diseases like AIDS, Ebola, and malaria spread more quickly and are more difficult to control.
A few years ago, people in Taiwan had a referendum about the nuclear power plant. Have you ever thought of the location that the factories will be? According to a global review, experts found that poor communities were tend to be exposed to higher concentrations compared to richer communities. A few years ago, people in Taiwan had a referendum about the nuclear power plant. A few years ago, in 1948 in South Africa, there was a policy about the apartheid. Under apartheid, non-white South Africans, a majority of the population, were forced to live in separate areas from whites and use separate public facilities. Our other topic for today is environmental racism. Environmental racism is the disproportionate impact of environmental hazards on people of color. If humans build harmful constructions like nuclear power plants, they might build them in a place where vulnerable groups live, and this will damage their rights. So, we thought of some solutions to these problems. The Environmental Justice Foundation exists to protect the natural world and defend our basic human rights. We can donate to these kind of foundations, and they will help us to take action.
To rescue those underprivileged areas, MSF is an independent international medical aid organization with Doctors Without Borders. It's dedicated to providing emergency medical assistance to people affected by infectious diseases, epidemics, and natural disasters. We can donate money online to show our support to them.
Tell everyone around you to start preserving our earth and stop racism now.
Let's welcome our next group, Criminal Justice by Odin and Jasper.
Hello everyone, I'm Odin. I'm Jasper. Today we're going to talk about criminal justice. Criminal justice is an important side of the society that ensures the safety and security of the citizens. The criminal justice system is made up of various agencies and institutions, including law enforcement and courts, all which work together to detect, prosecute, and punish criminal behavior. One of the main goals of the criminal justice system is to insist the rules of laws and make sure that justice is served for both victim and offenders. When a crime happens, law enforcement agencies are responsible for investigating the case, gathering evidence, and arresting the criminal. While the criminal justice system is essential in maintaining public safety, it is not without its flaws. One of the most significant criticisms of the criminal justice system is the disproportionate impact it has on marginalized communities. Racial and socioeconomic gaps are popular throughout the criminal justice system, from the rates of arrest to the serious degree of sentencing. For example, black people are more likely to be arrested and punished to longer prison terms than the white individuals just because they are black. They are treated differently even they have committed the same crime. Similarly, individuals from low-income communities are more likely to be sent to prison and have limited access to legal expression. Now, the criminal justice reform is a hotly debated topic in the United States, with many advocating for changes to reduce racial disparities and over-reliance on punishment. Now, let's talk about some examples of the criminal justice system in different countries.
In Japan, law enforcement agencies are responsible for investigating crimes and bringing charges against suspects. A prosecutor's office has broad powers to investigate and prosecute criminal cases, and the courts have a high conviction rate. However, there is also a strong emphasis on recovery of offenders into society. Another problem with the criminal justice system is the over-reliance on punishment, especially going to jail. The United States has the highest jail rate in the world, with over 2.3 million people behind bars. This has resulted in overcrowded prisons, strained resources, and limited opportunities for repair and return to society. In order to solve these issues, There have been calls for reform of the criminal justice system. Some of the suggested solutions include reducing the number of non-violent offenses, like a strict medium sentences, and investing in community-based alternatives to imprisonment. In recent years, Taiwan has made significant efforts to reform its legal system. The government has implemented many kinds of steps to improve its judicial openness and efficiency, such as increase the use of technology in court proceedings and improving access to legal services for citizens. The criminal justice system plays a critical role in keeping public safety and persisting the rule of law. However, it's essential to address the system's flaws, including racial and socio-economic differences and over-reliance on punishment. By working towards reform, we can create a criminal justice system that is fair, effective, and justice for all. Now, let's hear the conclusion.
We humans are born equal, no matter our race, gender, country, language, or religion. We all deserve the fair treatment.
Despite this, many of us are still oppressed. Some lost their homes to factories, causing the environment to worsen. Some never got the chance to let their children receive education and were forced to work at a young age.
Some receive different judgmental treatment and separated restraint depending on their skin tone. Some were bullied for their different sexual orientation, even lead to suicide. Some were forced to leave their hometown because their houses were destroyed. So they also need to face discrimination just because they are different. Their salary is lower than others no matter how hard they work. This makes it more difficult to survive in the new country.
Judicially, these people are sentenced to different penalties for the same crime, leading to overcrowded prisons and strained resources. So, how do we respond to this condition? According to the above, we should all develop the habit of determining the production process of everything we buy, staying away from companies using child labor or overworking employees.
Through judicial reforming, we can build a fair and effective criminal justice system, protecting the underprivileged. We should expand the chance for women's education, leading them to make wise decisions, detached from male domination, and receive the same treatment. As for immigrants, we should leave the shackles of discrimination and construct a society of harmony.
Many organizations all over the world are fighting to defend the rights of these people. Although we may not be able to join their campaigns, we should still hold a heart filled with inclusion and diversity, a heart with respect. Despite our differences in skin tone, race, gender, or sexual orientation, every single one of us deserves a fair life.
Together, we can make a difference, little by little, step by step. The core of justice is a fair word. We believe that this is justice, and with it, we can
Change the world. Thank you.